Welcome to our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at personal finance.
But with a twist.
Yeah, a twist.
A psychological twist.
We're really going to focus on the psychology of money.
That's right.
We've got this amazing book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
Yeah, Housel, he's really interesting. He goes way beyond, the typical sort of how to get rich kind of advice.
Yeah, the step-by-step, do this, do that.
Exactly.
One dives into the human side of things.
Yeah, like how do our brains actually work?
Yeah, how do we as humans
when it comes to money?
Make the decisions that we do around money?
And sometimes they're not so good.
Sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're not so good.
Often they're not.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into all that.
Yeah.
So Housel starts off, he tells this story, right out the gate, of this high-flying executive.
Oh, yeah.
Who basically just throws money around.
Yeah, he's got tons of it.
And there's this anecdote where he offers a hotel manager $5,000 for a broken lamp.
$5,000, yeah. Which is crazy because the lamp was only worth $500.
Yeah, $500.
Yeah.
But he's like, whatever, here's $5,000.
Take it, I don't care.
Yeah, and it's a really good way to just illustrate.
It illustrates a point right at the beginning.
Yeah, his point is being smart, being intelligent, book smart,
doesn't necessarily mean
does not guarantee
financial success at all.
Financial success. It doesn't mean you're going to be good with money.
You could be a genius and completely mess up your finances.
And the counter to that is he tells this story of Ronald Reed.
Oh, Ronald Reed, yeah.
The janitor.
A janitor from Vermont.
Yeah, who amasses this fortune.
$8 million.
$8 million.
By being really consistent, really patient.
And just smart about his habits.
Yeah, good financial habits.
Yeah. And it's amazing. This guy, nobody would have looked at him and been like,
yeah, nobody knew.
Oh, secret millionaire over here.
Yeah, totally unassuming guy.
Totally unassuming guy. Just quietly.
Lived very simply.
Building his wealth.
But over time.
Yeah, and this really just challenges our assumptions of
what does wealth look like?
Yeah, what does wealth really look like? What does it mean to be wealthy?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be flashy.
You don't have to have the fancy car, the big house, whatever.
It's really about your habit.
It's about the everyday choices that you're making.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Housel goes on to say.
He makes this really interesting point.
Yeah.
That your personal experiences with money become the lens through which you view everything.
Yeah, totally. He gives this example, someone who lived through, a period of high inflation.
Like the 70s.
Like the 70s.
Yeah.
They're going to have a completely different perspective.
Totally different outlook.
Than someone who's,
who's never seen that.
Who's only known stable prices.
Yeah, who's young.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Your whole understanding is different. Yeah, and this explains, why sometimes you hear financial advice and you're like,
that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, that does not compute.
Yeah.
Because you're coming at it from a completely
different perspective.
Yeah, and that's okay.
That's okay.
It's the point.
We all have our own, baggage when it comes to money.
I like that, money baggage.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all have it.
And he goes on to talk about how, big historical events, can really shape how you view the world financially.
Yeah.
He mentions this study, I think it was, people who lived through the Great Depression.
Oh, yeah.
They tend to invest
more conservatively?
Much more conservatively than people who didn't.
Right.
Because that experience
seared into their memory.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, your financial decisions might seem totally illogical.
To somebody else.
To someone else, but to you, they make perfect sense.
They make perfect sense, given your own life experience. Right. I love this example he uses about Bill Gates.
Oh, yeah.
And how, he had access to this high school computer lab.
Back in the 60s.
In the 60s. Think about that. In the 60s.
How many people had that?
Nobody. Nobody had that.
Nobody had that.
And so Housel uses this to illustrate this concept of
luck and risk.
Luck and risk. So, obviously.
He's not saying that Bill Gates is not smart.
No.
Or driven.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. He worked his tail off.
He worked hard, but he acknowledges.
He was in the right place at the right time.
Right place, right time. Could you imagine if he hadn't had access to that computer?
It's a different world, yeah.
And there were probably other kids just as talented.
Oh, I'm sure.
Who just didn't have those opportunities.
Didn't have the lucky breaks.
Yeah.
And so it's just a good reality check because I think we
focus so much on the hard work.
Yeah, the hard work.
And the brilliance of these successful people.
Yeah, but we don't acknowledge the role.
We don't acknowledge the role of luck. And that, some people just get lucky breaks.
They get lucky breaks.
And that helps them.
Yeah, and some people, maybe they work just as hard and they're just as brilliant, but
they just never get that lucky break.
It just don't get the lucky break.
Yeah.
And this raises this question of, like...
Yeah, how much of it is skill?
Yeah.
Versus how much of it is just
dumb luck.
Just being in the right place, right time.
Yeah, which, I don't know the answer to that question, but it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, it is.
And I think it's a good reminder to...
not be so hard on ourselves.
Yeah, to not be so hard on ourselves when we compare ourselves to,
these super successful people.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah. Why am I not a billionaire?
Yeah,
like,
it's not always that simple.
It's not always that simple.
Yeah.
There's other factors at play.
There are.
Well, speaking of success, one of the key things that he talks about in the book is this idea of compounding.
Oh, yeah, the snowball effect.
The snowball effect, yeah. And he uses Warren Buffett.
Oh, yeah, the classic example.
As the classic example of, starting early.
Yeah.
Investing consistently, and how over time...
Even with average returns.
You can build...
incredible wealth.
Incredible wealth.
Yeah.
And he has this mind-blowing thought experiment.
Well, tell me about it.
Where he's like, imagine if Jim Simons...
Yeah, the mathematician.
Yeah.
Investor.
They're high returns.
Yeah, known for his incredible returns.
Yeah.
Had started investing at the same age as Buffett.
Yeah.
He would be worth...
Quintillions.
Quintillions.
I don't even know how many zeros that is.
I know, it's insane.
It's like a number with like...
I think it's like 18 zeros.
18 zeros.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's beyond comprehension.
It's beyond comprehension. But the point is...
time.
Time is the most powerful
force in investing.
The earlier you start,
the more time your money has to grow.
Yeah.
To snowball.
Like that snowball rolling down the hill.
Exactly.
It starts small, but as it gains momentum...
it's bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And it can have this huge impact over time.
Yeah. Time is your friend.
Time is your friend when it comes to investing.
Okay. One of my favorite anecdotes from this book...
Okay, let's hear it.
...is the story of Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller.
At the billionaire's party.
At the billionaire's party, yeah. And Heller, very successful author in his own right, says...
You know what? I have something you don't.
I have enough.
Enough.
Which is something money can't buy.
And this is so brilliant because...
it really gets to that...
that psychological aspect of wealth.
Yeah, like...
yeah, like there's this constant pressure.
to accumulate more.
Yeah, but Heller's like, I've got what I need.
Yeah, I'm content.
Yeah, I'm content, and that's powerful.
Yeah, that's a form of wealth that you can't buy.
Yeah, you can't buy contentment.
No.
And Housel goes on to warn, about this trap of always wanting more.
Yeah.
Never being satisfied.
And he gives this example of Rajat Gupta.
Oh, yeah, the businessman.
Yeah, who was super successful, but...
he wanted more.
He wanted more.
It ended up costing him everything.
Yeah, he was convicted of insider trading.
Yeah.
It's a cautionary tale.
It's a cautionary tale for sure.
That sometimes the pursuit of more can lead you down a very dangerous path.
Yeah, even when you've already achieved a level of success that most people would, dream of.
Absolutely.
And it's a reminder that...
that contentment, that idea of enough is really valuable.
Is super valuable, and we're going to dive into that more. It's interesting how, we talk about contentment and enough, but then there's this whole other side of it.
Yeah.
Where we're constantly told to, learn from our mistakes.
Learn from history.
Learn from history.
And Housel talks about this too.
Yeah, he makes this really interesting point.
He's like, learn from history.
But carefully. Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what? What do you mean carefully? Like,
it seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, because I always told.
Study the past so you don't repeat the same mistakes.
Right.
But when it comes to money, he's like, hold on a second.
Yeah, like why? Why should we be careful about relying on historical data?
Well, because history, as much as it can teach us things, it's not a crystal ball.
Right.
Like, we can't predict the future.
Right.
Especially when it comes to something like finance.
So dynamic.
Which is constantly changing.
Yeah, so just because something worked, 20 years ago...
doesn't mean it's going to work today.
Doesn't mean it's going to work today.
Yeah.
And... he gives some good examples of this.
Yeah, like think about the dot-com bubble.
The dot-com bubble.
Or the housing crisis.
Oh, 2008, yeah.
Those were driven by, like, really unique factors of their time,
Yeah, so, like, trying to use, historical data from the 50s.
To navigate the dot-com bubble.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
It's not going to help you.
Because the world has changed.
The world has changed. The financial landscape.
It's a completely different landscape.
It's totally different.
And I love this analogy. It's like trying to use an old map
To navigate a city.
To navigate a city, yeah.
That's constantly changing.
Yeah, like what might have been a major thoroughfare back then.
Yeah.
Could be a dead end now.
A dead end, exactly.
Yeah, and he also talks about how the rise of things like the 401k and venture capital have fundamentally changed how we
save,
invest, yeah.